Many of you already have processes in place to manage new apps. You might have a process that as new apps are created, you send the app maker a welcome email, and the email will provide a number of links to useful information, maybe an overview of what they should and shouldn't be doing in that particular environment. Other customers have registration processes whereby they want the app maker to provide a little bit more information about what the app is going to do to try and establish the risk that it exposes to the organization should the app stop working. I've seen a number of implementations of this, usually based around email, where the app maker will receive an email saying, Steve, you've created a new app. We need you to register it. Please follow this procedure. It might be a simple Microsoft form that I go on and complete. It might be a Power App that I use to register the app. One thing I'd say though is that I've seen again with a number of customers pretty low compliance to this. Usually, when an email is sent, depending on when the user receives it, they might action it immediately, or they might forget. They might be very busy, and I've seen again in a number of implementations with customers where they've had to build in reminders. So if someone hasn't registered the app within a week, they'll receive a gentle reminder, all the way up to maybe a couple of months. And again, I've seen other implementations where customers have been slightly more or taken more of an enforcement role, where they'll do a soft delete of the app if the app maker hasn't registered it within a period of time. Now, if you've seen the overshared app flow that I've been putting together, and I'll put the link to the video and the solution in the comments of this video, I've started to use adaptive cards with customers, or getting customers to use adaptive cards for the most important processes, because I find, or one thing we've found with customers is that the uptake or the compliance to messages that are sent through chat seems to be much greater than using email. So what I've done, I've created this app and saved it. So I saved it 10 minutes ago with a view of running my solution to show you what happens. So let's take a look at it. So essentially what we have is a flow called New App Risk Assessment. This is part of the overarching solution that you've downloaded, or hopefully you're planning to download, and it runs daily. Now, when it runs, we calculate the what I'm calling the cut-off time. So we take the run time of the flow, and then we get that time exactly 24 hours ago, and that gives us the window of detecting apps. So what we do is we get all of the apps in the default environment. I'm limiting this to one environment. You could take a slightly different approach if you needed to. But what we basically do is we get all of the apps, and then for each app we set a variable for the created time of the app, and we compare it against the cutoff time and the app cutoff time. And if it's within the last 24 hours, then we send notification to the app maker using an adaptive card. And as I've just explained, people generally respond to chat messages in a much more timely manner than what they do to email. And with that in mind, we're not trying to overuse this approach. This is purely for the most critical of the governance policies that you have, and I think app registration probably falls into that. So we're keeping it very simple. We're only asking the user to select a couple of options. In fact, let's run it, and then we can take a look at what it's actually going to do. Okay, so we're going to iterate through all of the apps. Now, I've created one in the last 24 hours. Well, the last 10 minutes if I'm being honest, but let's see what happens. Okay, so in chat, I've received a message to say, this is the app that I've created, this is when I created it, this is where I created it, and now I need to consider the impact to the business if this app stops working. So I can say, and again, these options are completely configurable within the adaptive card. You might decide that these are completely irrelevant to what you're doing. So I could say that the impact on operations, well, if my app stopped, it might impact my entire department, and it might impact some of our smaller accounts. Again, I've just made this up. So what we can do there. Now I've submitted that, and essentially we're done. But to try and make this a little bit more real worldy, where I've selected that it's going to impact more than just myself, it's going to impact my entire team and some of our customers, then what I've done with the flow is build in notification to what I'm calling the admin channel. Now, again, a lot of customers are now using Teams for their COE, purely because it is like a central place for everything. So I've created a channel for some of the functions within a COE, so the administrators, security teams, the champions. And in this instance, the security team have been made aware that Steve, me, has created an app. I could tell you that time up actually. I've created an app that will have a medium impact on the business, but a low impact to the customers. And basically what I started thinking about is, okay, well, what are we going to do about it? Now, the IT function could simply label it. They want to monitor the app. And what we could do there is, if assuming you've got the COE starter kit in place, you could update the app's record to say that this is flagged as like a high risk app, and it's something that you need on a separate dashboard. Maybe you need to ensure that you want to keep a close eye on the number of people that it's being shared with, when it's being modified, all of those kinds of things that you might want to keep a closer eye on it. And then you could say, okay, so I'm just going to monitor it, there'll be no action. Or you could say, I'm going to manage it. And what this could do is then start to notify the user that, hey, this app that you've created actually exposes us to more risk than we're comfortable with, and leaving you in charge of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take ownership of that app away from you, and we're going to move it into a managed environment. So essentially what it's doing, it's not putting much effort on the end user. They just simply select from a couple of drop downs, click submit, and based off of that, we're able to capture the information that's really critical around the app in terms of the risk that it exposes your organization to. But also building into that flow, we're notifying the admin team or the security team or whoever it is that needs to know. You could easily change this. It's very, very straightforward. And then, this is where my flow stops. But essentially what you could do here is if you want to monitor it, you could simply update the record in Dataverse to say that this is one that's going to be monitored. Then you could build an additional dashboard to capture all of the information about the apps that you really need to keep a close eye on. Or you could start a completely separate process where you're now going to send communication to the person that made the app and say, this is too much of a high risk app. It needs to move under managed, or a more managed environment, i.e. it's not an end user tool anymore. And in fact, I think that's what I've done here. So we'll just see the chat message. Okay, all right. So I've forgotten about this. So I actually built the flow to let me know that the app is going to be brought under control. So here, this is me being the app maker again. It's difficult to do demos when you're both the app maker and the admin team, but hopefully you understand the general gist of what we're doing here. So, I've now let the app maker know that because of the risk, that we're going to be moving this into a managed environment, and we're going to work with you, the app maker, to make sure this is as smooth as possible. So hopefully this gets you thinking about different ways to manage the app registration process, identifying those high-risk apps as they're being built or before they become used heavily. I mean, if you're detecting it within 24 hours, you'd assume that the maker hasn't got as far as releasing the app yet. So we're trying to, or what I'm trying to do is kind of illustrate different ways of improving that sort of compliance around app registration, identifying those high risk apps as they're being built, and getting them moved into the correct environment if they need to be. Thank you.